Hello everyone, it's Bloody Jack here from the Bloody Jack channel, and as the new Child's Play remake is coming out this Friday, I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about um, Chucky for another horror studies series. And without further ado, we'll be talking about the appearance. Yeah, we'll be talking about the appearance, the history, the backstory, and we will be talking about the movies. I'll be going into full detail about, well, some detail about each movie. But aside from that, there will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen any of the Chucky movies, if you haven't seen Child's Play 2, Child's Play 3, Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, and Curse of Chucky, and Cult of Chucky, yeah, fair warning, there is some mature content in this video, and there are also spoilers right up ahead. Yeah, without wasting any more time than I already have, let's get right into the video. Right, got the appearance. In his human form, Chucky was a rather attractive looking Caucasian male with shoulder-length brown hair and piercing eyes, and wears a trench coat or blazer and white sneakers. However, this does change once he enters the body of the doll. When he's in the doll form, he has long red hair and freckles, along with blue eyes, and a series. Throughout the series of the first three films, he also does have the other bits of his clothing, like blue overalls, a striped multicolored shirt, and sneakers. Yeah, throughout the first three films of the series, he looks like an everyday child's doll. But with the fourth film came his famous scars and stitches, as well as an occasional bloody eye. So we're going to go through the history of the character. Charles Lee Ray was born on March 9th, 1950. He was a voodoo practitioner and a serial strangler, originally from Hackensack, New Jersey. Charles Lee Ray was born to an Irish-American mother who came from a wealthy family but worked as a bartender and dancer, and an Austrian immigrant father who was an alcoholic and who would frequently abuse him and his mother, Mina Elizabeth Ray. His mother hung herself when he was 10 years old, and when he was put into care. Despite this, Charles was a very intelligent child with a high IQ. He was also extremely shy and introverted, and suffered from severe anxiety disorders and depression. As a result, Charles was bullied right up until high school. When Charles was 14, he wrote on his diary about why and how much he hated humanity, and was self-confessed. He had no feelings towards other humans or other living beings. It was also implied that members of Charles's family were also murderers. This might have been where Charles got some of his psychotic personality traits from. Ray apparently went to a man named John Elshot Bishop, who was also known as Dr. Death, to learn about voodoo magic, as to find a way to cheat death. Although John was unaware of Charles's true motives, at some later point, Charles met and befriended Daniel Pierce, and was introduced to his family, his wife Sarah, who was pregnant with Nika at the time, and his daughter Barbara. Charles fell secretly in love with Sarah and wanted the two of them to be a family. At some point later, he murdered a woman named Vivian Van Pelt and stole her $6,000 ring for unknown reasons. He also met Tiffany Valentine and she became his girlfriend, though Charles did not view her as such, as he was still in love with Sarah. He also killed Tiffany's mother. One night, Charles found Daniel walking home and offered him a ride home. At some point, he managed to subdue and drown him. He later attended his funeral along with Sarah's family. He kidnapped Sarah and held her in the basement of a building, possibly the same building, located at 730 Stony Island Avenue on the south side of Chicago. He revealed his true motives to her and everything he did to her family, now believing himself to be part of the family. At some point, Sarah managed to gain access to a phone where she dialed 911. The police showed up to the building, and Ray realized what happened. Enraged at Sarah's snitching to the cops about us, he stabbed Sarah with a voodoo knife in the stomach, and this caused Nika's paralysis of her legs. Later after that, she was born. Now that was just the backstory of Charles Lee Ray, or Chucky. We're going to start off with the first Child's Play movie, which came out in 1988. On November 9th, 1988, Charles Lee Ray was the notorious Lakeshore Strangler who was chased down the street by a detective named Michael David Norris, who proceeded to fire on Ray, critically injuring him. Bleeding heavily, Ray stumbled into a toy store and collapsed into a pile of good guy dolls. Knowing he would probably die for sure, Ray used the voodoo to transfer his soul into one of the dolls. The store was then struck by lightning and it burned into the ground. The next day, a young boy named Andy Barkley makes breakfast for his widowed mother, Karen, and tells her he wants a good guy doll for his 6th birthday after watching a television commercial for it. Unable to afford the full price, Karen buys a stolen doll from a homeless man, which is the same doll Charles Lee Ray had transferred into earlier. He tries to use Andy to transfer his soul into, because Andy was the first person whom Chucky revealed his secret to, and thus the only person Chucky could transfer his soul into in accordance with a voodoo spell. Chucky is injured but not killed. He is then burnt alive by Andy, gets his arm, leg and head shot off by Karen, but is finally killed when he is shot in the heart by Mike Norris. Next we've got Child's Play 2, which came out in 1990. Set 2 years later, Andy has moved in with a foster family while his mother undergoes psychiatric evaluation. According to the Child's Play comic miniseries, Detective Norris was threatened into facing a dismissal unless he told the authorities that Karen was unstable. To prove their bad publicity wrong, Play Pals Incorporated, the creators of the Good Guy dolls, decided to rebuild Chucky, who was brought back to life by giving him a new body parts aside from the skull and the teeth. Chucky resumes his search for Andy the next morning. Chucky follows Andy to the school where he vandalizes his schoolwork, making his teacher incredibly pissed. Chucky kills the teacher, so Andy is blamed for that. Chucky then encounters and kills Andy's foster father, Philip. Andy is blamed for murdering the foster father and returned to the orphanage. After killing Andy's foster mother, Joanne, Chucky takes Kyle, Andy's foster sister, hostage to help him find Andy. Chucky brings Andy to a good guy factory with Kyle in pursuit. After failing to transfer his soul into Andy's body, Chucky realizes that he is trapped in his doll form and attempts to kill both Andy and Kyle, but is instead doused in hot molten plastic after his leg and right arm are severed. The enraged mangled Chucky is killed when Kyle shoves an air hose into his mouth, causing his head to explode. Now moving on to Child's Play 3, which released in 1991. Upon turning 16, Andy, now played by Justin Whalen, is sent to the military school, having failed to cope in several foster homes. Meanwhile, Play Pals Incorporated re-releases its old Good Guy toy line, believing that their bad publicity has gone away. When workers clean up the Good Guy factory, a crane pierces one of Chucky's severed arms, causing blood to drip out. When Chucky's headless corpse goes over a vat of liquid plastic, some of Chucky's blood leaks into the vat, bringing him back to life once more. He resumes his spree of killing Andy by choking to death the president of the company, who appeared briefly in the second film. Upon discovering the location of Andy, Chucky quickly and cleverly mails himself to Andy's school, where he is discovered by a young private named Ron Tyler. Realizing that Tyler is the first person whom he revealed his identity in his new body, Chucky must now use Tyler instead of Andy for the soul transfer. Andy was in pursuit to stop Chucky from transferring his soul into Tyler's body. The pursuit ended inside an amusement park ride, and Chucky was killed by Andy, and when he was thrown into a giant fan, tearing his body into several pieces. Now we move on to Bride of Chucky, which released in 1998. One night, Chucky's girlfriend, named Tiffany, finds the remains of the doll after calmly slitting the throat of the cop she bribed to steal his remains out of the evidence room. Tiffany returns to her trailer and sews Chucky back together. She uses an incantation from a book entitled Voodoo for Dummies to reanimate Chucky, after which Tiffany learns that the ring she wore for 10 years was not actually an engagement ring, but was stolen by Chucky from a wealthy old woman named Vivian Van Pelt. An enraged Tiffany confines Chucky to a playpen, which she bought for the baby she wanted to have with Chucky, hoping to get him in another human form. After escaping, Chucky electrocutes Tiffany in her own bathtub and transfers her soul into her bridal doll. Tiffany immediately wants to get out of the doll body, but Chucky admonishes her that the only way to return to human form is with the Heart of Damballa, a mystical amulet that Chucky was wearing the night he became a doll. In order to get to Forest Creek Cemetery in Hackensack, New Jersey, where Chucky's human corpse is buried, along with the amulet, Tiffany calls her neighbor Jesse, offering to pay him to get the opportunity to get Chucky and Tiffany to the cemetery by the next day. Unaware that Tiffany and Chucky are the dolls, he takes the advantage of the opportunity to take his girlfriend named Jade from her overprotective uncle named Warren Kincaid. He asks Jade to accompany him, and she accepts his offer. Before they leave, Warren attempts to frame Jesse by putting a bag of weed in his van, unaware that Chucky and Tiffany are in the van needing a ride to Hackensack. Tiffany and Chucky fatally wound Warren with nails and concealing his body in the trunk. En route to their destination, Tiffany and Chucky kill anyone getting in their way, framing Jesse and Jade in the process. To make matters worse, Tiffany and Chucky intend to steal Jesse and Jade's bodies using voodoo. Jesse and Jade decide to rest in a motel, where they meet newlyweds called Diane and Russell, who are later killed by falling shards of glass when Tiffany throws a bottle of wine into their ceiling mirror. Impressed by the creative murder, Chucky proposes to Tiffany, and they consummate the marriage. When the bodies of the newlyweds are discovered by the hotel maid, Jesse and Jade is especially wanted by the police. Jesse and Jade eventually learn that the dolls are alive, and that there is no turning back after hijacking a recreational vehicle from another couple. Jesse and Jade are forced to drive the dolls to the cemetery in Hackensack. On the way, Tiffany and Chucky get into a fight, instigated by Jesse and Jade, and Jesse crashes and explodes the van. Nevertheless, they manage to reach the cemetery just before Tiffany transfers her soul into Jade. She and Chucky get into another fight. Tiffany is fatally wounded in the scuffle when the police show up. Chucky gets shot by Jade as she lays dying. Tiffany gives birth to a bloody baby doll. Now we move on to Seed of Chucky, which came out in 2004/2005. 6 years after the events of Bride of Chucky, the offspring of Chucky and Tiffany is a gender-confused child named Glenn and Glenda, but he has grown up as an orphan in Great Britain. When he sees his parents in an episode of Access Hollywood for the upcoming movie Chucky Goes Psycho, Chucky escapes his abusive ventriloquist owner and mails himself to Hollywood. Once there, he uses Chucky's amulet to transfer Chucky and Tiffany's souls into their new doll bodies, that the studio is using them for their new movie. Although horrified by his parents' murderous lifestyle, Glenn/Glenda wanted desperately to please his/her parents and belong to a family no matter what happens. Seeing that Glenn has no genitalia, Chucky and Tiffany cannot agree on the name or the gender of their child. Chucky prefers the name Glenn, while Tiffany prefers Glenda. Glenn and Glenda ask his/her parents why they kill, to which they reply that they never much thought about it. Tiffany proposes to end their murderous ways. Much to Chucky's dismay, this proves that to be an arduous endeavor, especially for Tiffany. Chucky and Tiffany kill some people behind each other's backs and swear Glenn to secrecy. And Chucky tricks Glenn into committing 2 murders by accident. Eventually, Glenn is so traumatized that Glenda briefly emerges as an alternate personality who pleases her parents by gleefully committing murder, after which Glenn re-emerges for the rest of the film. Meanwhile, real-life actress Jennifer Tilly is desperate to advance her acting career when the at the time very popular rapper Redman arrives at Tilly's mansion to discuss casting her in his movie. They are both knocked out by Tiffany. Chucky's sperm is used to impregnate Jennifer Tilly in order to give Glenn/Glenda a human body. Because it is a voodoo pregnancy, Tilly appears 9 months pregnant within just a couple days. Later, Jennifer Tilly and her limo driver Stan, as Chucky needs a replacement body because Tiffany killed Redman in an earlier scene, are tied to the bed. Afterwards, Tilly promptly goes into labor. After the birth of twin babies, Glenn and Glenda, Chucky resolves to remain as a doll, as it makes him immortal and unique, prompting an aligned Tiffany to leave him. She decides to take Glenn with her, enraging Chucky, who hurls a knife at Tilly, whose limo driver jumps into the way to save her. Tiffany then attacks Chucky before the police arrive. The next day, Jennifer Tilly is visited in the hospital by Tiffany and Glenn. Just as Tiffany transfers her soul into Jennifer Tilly, Chucky axes his way through the door and kills Jennifer Tilly, who is in Tiffany's doll body, with an axe. Tiffany barely escapes into Jennifer Tilly's body, but Chucky and Glenn believe that she died. With this traumatic event, Glenn is suddenly capable of killing without Glenda's help, and he proceeds to attack his father. Glenn uses martial arts to fight Chucky, and Tiffany, in Jennifer Tilly's body, slides the axe to Glenn and severs all of Chucky's limbs. Even when dying, Chucky is proud of his son, but that doesn't stop Glenn from removing his father's head. Tiffany in Tilly's body comforts Glenn afterwards. And 5 years later, Tiffany is living happily with her human twins, Glenn and Glenda, and now celebrating their 5th birthday. One of Tiffany's servants, Fulvia, tries to quit because she is frightened of Glenda, which she believes is a troubled child. Tiffany finds this ridiculous but says she can leave, and Fulvia turns her back around. Tiffany brutally swings her doll at Fulvia's head, causing her to fall to the ground. She strikes her head several more times, practically open, after while dragging Fulvia's body into the closet. Her eyes glow green, as her original body had, and Tiffany sees Glenda peering through the window. They smile at each other knowingly. Tiffany goes outside to tell the story of her and Chucky to a group at the party, and she surprises Glenn by giving him an unlabeled gift. Glenn opens it to reveal Chucky's severed arm, which leaps through the air and grab him. Now we move on to Curse of Chucky. Set after the events of Seed of Chucky, the film opens with a young paraplegic woman named Nika, who lives with her mother, Sarah, in the family mansion. A package containing Chucky is delivered to the house, and while Nika ponders the doll's origins, Sarah begins to feel uneasy with the doll and throws it in the trash. Later that night, Nika hears her mother scream and makes her way down to the foyer via a lift in her house, where she finds Sarah dead from a self-inflicted stab wound. As the camera pans out, Chucky can be seen at the table. He can be seen sitting at the table after the mother's apparent suicide. Nika's domineering sister named Barbara, or Barb, along with her husband named Ian, daughter named Alice, and a live-in nanny named Jillian, as well as a priest called Father Frank. Alice finds Chucky in the bathroom while immediately befriending him straight after. Nika and Alice prepare 6 bowls of chili for dinner, and once they leave, Chucky pours a healthy dose of rat poison into the 6th bowl. At the dinner, after many false scares, Father Frank receives the poison-laced chili and begins to feel the effects. The father leaves the mansion, only to be killed in a car accident on his way home. He is found with his head wedged between the wreckage, and when it was removed, his head was later to be revealed to be decapitated. When Alice is put into her bed later that night, she takes Chucky in with her, and she's later scared by thunderstorms outside. Alice gets up and throws the cover over her and Chucky. After Alice tells Chucky that she is scared, he reveals his true colors. Chucky then sneaks out and kills Jillian after knocking her out while knocking over a bucket of water near some switched-on electrical sockets. Barb gets worried for Alice's safety and decides to search the house for her, whilst Ian is asleep wearing earplugs, and Nika is looking around the house for Alice. Barb then finds Chucky in the attic and finds some small pieces of excess skin on his face. She peels it away, revealing Chucky's true face. He gives Barb a scare and then stabs her in the eye, and then proceeds to go for Nika. Nika then wakes up Ian, but he knocks out Nika and duct tapes her to a wheelchair. Ian reveals that he placed a small hidden camera on Chucky and has been spying on everyone this whole time and is fully aware of Chucky's origins. Chucky catches Ian by surprise and slams an axe into his jaw, killing him at an instant. He tries to attack Nika, but she gets back up and stabs Chucky in the chest. Chucky plays dead, and the police arrive and find Nika laying on the floor covered in blood and has a knife rammed inside the doll. She is then enlisted insane by the judge in court. Alice is sent away to live with her grandmother, and Chucky is being transported as evidence. But the cop who is transferring Chucky has his throat slit by Tiffany, who was hiding in the back of the car the whole time. Chucky is then sent to Alice's grandmother's house and says he took care of Grandma, and then he proceeds to speak to Voodoo Chan in front of Alice. Tiffany then proceeds to mail Chucky to sort out another loose end. A few days go by, and he is sent to Andy Barkley, who is now all grown up living on his own. Chucky very carefully opens up the package. He looks around and finds Andy pointing a shotgun at him, and Chucky tries to speak to Andy, and then Andy just pulls the trigger, thus ending the movie. Now we move on to the newest movie in the series, well, the original series, Cult of Chucky, which came out in 2017. 4 years after the events of Curse of Chucky, an adult Andy Barkley reveals to have the original Chucky head, which is still conscious and deformed after being repeatedly tortured by Andy in retribution for his crimes. Nika is then spent the past 4 years in a mental institution after being framed by Chucky for the murders of her family. After an intense therapy, she now believes that she was responsible for the murders and that Chucky was just a manifestation of her psychosis. As a result of after a result of her quote-unquote breakthrough, her doctor, Dr. Foley, has her transferred to a medium security facility, Harrogate Psychiatric Hospital. Nika becomes a part of a regular group therapy session, which is composed of Malcolm, a man with multiple identity disorder, Angela, an old woman who believes that she is dead, Claire, a woman who burned her house down, and Madeline, a patient who smothered her infant son to death. Foley introduces a new therapy technique which involves a good guy doll to the group. Most of the patients are settled by the doll except for Madeline, who treats it as her baby. Nika is visited by Tiffany, the legal guardian of her niece Alice. Tiffany reveals that Alice has died and leaves her a good guy doll, which she claims was a gift from Alice. That night, Chucky awakens and discovers that Nika has attempted suicide. The next morning, Nika finds that her wrists have been stitched up with a message stating "not so fast." She discovers that Angela has died with a message saying Chucky did it in her blood. After realizing that Valentine was the last name of Charles Lee Ray's girlfriend, Nika begins to believe that Chucky is real. Believing Madeline is in danger, Nika has Malcolm to try and warn her. However, Madeline throws the doll and Malcolm into an empty grave. The orderlies rescue Malcolm, but it is implied that Chucky has transferred his soul into his body. Chucky kills Claire next. Andy learns about the murderous realize that Chucky has transferred his soul into his body. Chucky kills Claire. Sorry, I'm retracking. Andy learns that the murders online, and realizes that Chucky has somehow managed to transfer his soul into multiple bodies at once. In a private session with Foley, Nika agrees to be hypnotized in order to regain any repressed memories about her involvement in the murders. While hypnotized, it is revealed that Foley has been sexually abusing Nika. Foley is then hit behind the head by Chucky, and Foley believes that Nika is the one, thus ending the movie. Andy then goes to the psychiatric hospital, finds one of the living Chucky dolls, attacks it, and eventually kills it, but having one of Chucky's souls transferred into Nika, she locks him in and leaves him there for the police to arrive to find him. But then Nika is seen to be catching a ride with Tiffany, and the movie ends. But there is a post-credits scene where Kyle from Child's Play 2 arrives and asks the original Chucky head, "Where is Andy?" Thus ending the movie on the cliffhanger. I would want to talk about the new Child's Play remake, but that hasn't come out yet. That doesn't come out till Friday, and I haven't seen it yet, but I'm seeing it this week on its release date. I'm pretty excited. But also another thing about Chucky is that there has been, the mythology of Chucky has been adapted through several comics. There was going to be some video games, but they didn't have a release date. And also, there was... let me try to think. And there is a TV show of the original series currently in development, but we haven't got a release date of that yet either. So, this was my small analysis on Chucky, all throughout the course of the Child's Play movies. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Also, don't forget to check me out on my social medias, on my Facebook page, on my Twitter account, on my Twitch, and Tumblr, and all that jazz. Don't forget to follow me on all that, and that's all I gotta say for now. See you guys in the next video.